All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to the walkthrough tutorial of your very first ledger and simulation and help on getting your company rolling and understanding the ins and outs of how to manage this, what seems at first insurmountable task of a business as warrant simulation. We're going to go through all of the startup stuff for your very first simulation, but you could continue to review this video at any point in time whenever you have questions or forget a certain calculation. We'll go through all of that here. We're going to start by making a pre-start plan. And within this pre-start plan, we're going to not only choose factories and warehouses, but make some strategic decisions. I'm going to be making a company based off of a pre-existing company, so I won't go through all the strategy, but I will go through how that company may have originally been formed. So you'll need to open up your student startup template to do that, and that's going to bring you here to this planning sheet. And you might have to adjust your starting line of credit. I'm going to assume I only have $150,000 starting line of credit, and I need to decide what type of company I'm going to create. Let's go ahead and look at what we're going to start with. Every company is going to begin with zero starting equity, no cash, no owner's equity, only a credit limit. And this could vary simulation to simulation, and it will, but that'll be the amount you're able to take out as a loan. Then we have our agriculture or commerce standard factories, 2 of them, that come in a bundle with free RMUs and FIUs, as well as a basic warehouse. That's going to store some agriculture and commerce, regardless of whether you use it or not, it's coming with it. So we have a pre-start plan. I'm going to pretend for this situation that I am part of the company Vetchers, and the Vetchers have chosen commerce as their primary industry. So I'm going to go ahead and fill out a planning sheet that will match that in my pre-start planning. I'm going to choose my starting factories, which is going to automatically update my starting inventory to include 4 free RMUs, 2 free standard factories, 1 free basic warehouse, and 2 free FIUs. Here we're getting our fixed expenses calculated for us, which is handy, especially as we're budgeting for what to begin with. It looks like the Vetchers also crafted 1 standard factory, 2 auto factories, and 8 warehouse expansions. Let's see how much that's going to cost with the fixed expenses and construction. 1 standard, 2 autos, and 8 warehouse expansions. So we're over the line of credit, but this was a simulation with a little bit more line of credit. Maybe it was a $200,000 line of credit, or maybe the Vetchers decided to go a little bit into debt in the first month in an attempt to grow their company fast off the start, because these pre-start plan constructions will be ready and waiting for you, as opposed to having to wait for them to be built in the later months. Then I got to decide what price I'm expecting to buy for commerce, and I might change that because $1,400 is on the higher end. Maybe I think I can get away with $1,100. That will give me a warning, but that's okay. And that's going to bring me down a little bit, maybe not enough. I also don't necessarily need all 18 of these in January, because the RMU is required to convert at max capacity, which is based on a calculation we'll go through in a second here, with the number of factories we bought and the number of conversions per factory and the number of RMUs required. The RMUs required are not accounting for the 4 free ones I get at the beginning of the month. So I can take 4 off of that and get a more accurate picture of what price I'm going to pay. 170, 20,000 of debt. That's a little bit high. Maybe the Vetchers were a little bit more risk taker group. So we'll stick with that, and we're going to take that information and use it to fill out the Prestart Plan. You're going to need to choose your name from the list, choose what class you are in, and also put in your group members. 1 second, I'm so sorry. All of them, including yourself. Type their names in. Cal, Bob, and Stacy. And come up with your company name. This is the Vetchers. And now we need to transfer the information that we had on our planning sheet over, starting with our starting factory bundles on this first page of the sheet, which both have been chosen to be commerce. Then we can go next. The second part of the Prestart Plan form is going to be based on the second section, the additional construction that I'm doing in the Prestart Plan, with additional construction costs and fixed expenses rolled into a total number there. And that is 0 for agriculture. Not dabbling with that this time. 1 additional standard commerce, 2 additional auto commerce, and 8 warehouses, as well as no tech. All right, we're going to turn that in, and we have been registered. We'll just need to now wait for confirmation of our company name code, our company code. And that'll come from this Prestart planning slide. Here I see the name I chose, Vetchers, was given the code VET. The next step is to take all that information that I just came up with my planning sheet and entered in the Prestart Plan Google form and transfer it over to my summary sheet or my ledger document, the 9-month or whatever number of months you're currently doing in the simulation student ledger template. And the very first part of that is the Prestart Plan. So my company name is the Vetchers, and this is VET. As the company code, CCID, VET. That is the company code that I will use on every form going forward. And my credit limit. And my factories. I chose commerce. And we did no agriculture. We did 1 standard commerce. Did 2 auto commerce. And we did 8 commerce warehouses. And you might notice that the subtotal here is different than the subtotal that you had on your planning sheet. That's okay. That includes fixed expenses. So you actually know now how much the fixed expenses for those constructions are based on their difference. So 135,000 includes fixed expenses. Here, the 126,000 does not include it. All right, we're all good. That information is going to carry forward into the summary sheet for the first month, updating how many starting free RMUs I have here, as well as how many factories I have total that are standard commerce factories, auto factories. This will be updating my warehouse capacity based on the 8 upgrades I did and the 5 starting room and some FIUs. The next thing I want to do is take out a loan for my company. Click on here and it'll bring you to the correct page. And if you know your company code, you're ready to roll. It is January year 1 if you're taking your loan out for the first time. My company code is VET. I'm going to take the maximum allowable loan no commas, no symbols, just the number. And I'm not paying off any principal, nor should you in the very first month of the simulation. You could leave that blank. If you try to put a 0, it will say it doesn't work. You don't have to put a 1. You can actually just leave it blank. And voila, we have submitted our loan, and we can now get started on our ledger if we so choose at this time while we wait for other people in the class to do their work. But for that, you will need to watch the ledger help videos. And let's fast forward to the moment of truth. All of the companies have been revealed. We are about to begin the simulation with the first order of operation, the RMU bidding. RMU bidding will always come with the current month's market card as the starting point. I, as the vetcher, am focusing on commerce, but I can also keep an eye on what the other industries are doing. And the start of every month is based on the raw materials. So I'm going to, for now, ignore the finished inventory values. Those will come later in the third phase of the month. So as this is on the screen, I'm able to talk to my group, remembering that this is January, and create a game plan for what we want to buy. It's a good idea to know how competitive each industry is. Agriculture is looking, nobody chose it this time. Seems like everybody chose commerce and a couple groups chose tech. So it's going to be a little bit competitive, and I might have to take that into consideration when I'm choosing the price I'm willing to pay. That $991 price is a bare minimum. I will definitely need to spend more than that based on the competition. Unless I get lucky, I could get away with the minimum, but I cannot put a bid below the minimum value. That is never allowed. That automatically gets canceled. So in my planning sheet, I remember I changed it to 1100 and still was a little bit in debt. So I might say, to kind of try to keep my budget balanced, I'm going to stick to $1,000. That sounds okay. Maybe 1,010. Just to try to play some mind games and make sure I'm not the lowest bidder if there is a situation where we run out. All right. So how many do I need to buy? That comes from the planning sheet or from a calculation you've done yourself. It said I needed 18, and I remembered I had 4. So I'm going to buy 14. That's going to go onto the RMU bidding form for the current month, which will always be up on the screen for me to see. And I'm going to bid 14 at $1,010 by filling in the form for my company. RMU bid is how many I would like. That's 14 because I have 4 free and I need 18 according to the calculations done by the pre-start sheet for me. My asking price is $1,010, and this is for commerce. Then I click submit, and it's been submitted successfully. I don't actually want to update my summary sheet for that just yet, but as I'm waiting for everybody else in the class to complete that, I can take a look at what's going on in my summary sheet. And this has some values that shouldn't be there. Those are from before. And what I'm going to need to do is get myself some cash because we're currently in a lot of debt. I'm going to take out a loan of $150,000. Still in debt, but a little bit less debt. That section called loans that comes after the starting inventory is going to be something I need to enter in every single month. And it's often forgotten, so pay attention. It's a good thing to do even before you do your RMU bids, or when you're looking and they've been completed successfully and you're twiddling your thumbs waiting for the class to continue. Maybe you go ahead and you remind yourself, oh, I need to enter the interest rate, which is always shown on the market card at the bottom. So I have my interest rate. I've added in the loan that I submitted the form for. And my fixed expenses are automatically calculated for this month. I can extend that into other months by clicking on the bottom right until the plus sign comes out and dragging it down. So our RMUs have been put through. Everybody else in the class is done, and we have the results. Let's see how we did. VET. Oh, we only submitted for 7 at this price and 7 at this price. Okay, we split our bets to make sure we got it, and we did, but so did everybody else. Everything was true. So I will need to calculate it based on the number times the price for the total cost. And since I did a split bid, I'm going to do that for each amount. Let's go ahead and do that math. I have bought successfully 7 plus 7 is 14 units. And then my calculation here, and I can make a note if I need it, total cost is equal to the number bought, number multiplied by the price per unit. Ooh, that's okay. I'm going to ignore that. So the number bought, I'm going to put an equation right here into Excel. I bought 7 times a price of $1,205.05 plus I bought 7 at a higher price of, lower price of $1,155. $1,155. And if I hit enter, that gives me my total amount spent. And it's going to update my cash flow accordingly. Ooh, we're in a little bit of debt. Hopefully it doesn't get too much worse. So once that's entered, I immediately jump into the conversions. And that is the most calculation heavy part of the simulation. And I need to take a look at the price info sheet to see how many conversions I can do. And that's going to also be based on how many factories I have this month, which is going to be based on your pre-start plan initially. But later on in the simulation, as you do construction, you might need to keep an eye on how many factories you have. So right now I have 3 standard factories and I have 2 auto factories. That's all the information I need for figuring out what conversions I'm going to do. So we will go in and we will look at our conversion calculations using this conversion cost chart. So the first column is going to be based on how many I have. You can ignore the auto, single, and pair. That pertains only to the price. Let's focus on just whether it's a standard or whether it's an auto. I have a number of factories of the standard type that is 3. And autos, I have, according to my summary sheet and based on the pre-start plan I submitted, 2. If you don't know those numbers, it does depend on your pre-start plan, and it should also in the first month match what you have entered plus the free standard factories you've chosen here. So I got 1 commerce, 2 commerce, a 3rd commerce standard. That's where the 3 came from. And I have 2 autos. It is really important that you fill out this first tab and that it matches what you have entered from your pre-start planning sheet onto the pre-start Google form. And if that's all done correctly, I have a good chance at getting this conversion calculation right. All right, the calculation is really simple, and maybe I'll just write it here. Conversion calculation. All right, it is going to be the number of factories times the number of conversions per factory. Both of those can be found here. Let's make it nice and fancy with some color coding. Number of factories times that little star. Let's use times the number of conversions per factory. So the number of factories is what I have entered in here. And the number of conversions is what I have entered in. And I don't need to adjust that. That's going to be set and always the same for every simulation. And that's going to be what I enter in for the second part of the equation. So for me, I'm going to start by doing my standard factory conversions. And I have 3 STD factories, standard factories, times I have 1 conversion per factory. 3 standard factories multiplied by 1 conversion per factory. Then we multiply those together. My number of factories times my conversion per factory. And I'm going to get the number of conversions. I will call that, oops, it doesn't like the equal sign. There we go. Number of conversions for standard factories, 3 times 1 equals 3. 3 standard conversions. So I need to enter that into my conversion form now. Conversions, I'm going to choose the same month. It'll still be on the board as January. Company code is going to stay the same the whole simulation. Don't mess it up or you won't get what you want. This is for commerce for me. My standard factories, I will be doing 3. I just calculated that. Now I need to figure out my auto factories. It's going to be the same calculation, but now I only have 2 auto factories times, look at this here, for the autos in commerce, we get 3 conversions. Not 1, 3 conversions per factory. And that calculation gives me 6 auto conversions, which is what I'm going to enter in on the conversion form. And I don't even need to know how much it costs yet. I can enter that. Enhancements. What are they? They're your advertisements that boost your brand name. I would recommend them, but you do also need to calculate their cost if you do them. Maybe not a good idea when I was in debt, but I did it. I can submit a maximum of 2 conversions, and if I have a second one, I can leave the form blank and just choose that. I, of course, would need to fill in my email and the month and my group name, my company's code, but the commodity you choose doesn't matter. Each advertisement, each product enhancement will apply across your entire business. If you're in multiple industries, it doesn't matter what one you choose. I'm going to go big, even if it puts me further into debt, just to show you how to do those calculations. So it's done. I've submitted it. Now I get to do the math for the cost, because on my summary sheet, it requires me to enter in next not only the conversions I did, which I know I did 3 conversions here through standard, 6 conversions through auto. That was the calculation I just did here. But now I need to use these numbers to figure out how much that's actually going to cost me. The cost is going to be based on the number of conversions. Let's do the cost calculation over here. Cost calculation. It is equal to the number of conversions that we calculated above. And it's going to be multiplied by the cost per unit in this row here. number of conversions, and that is what I've color coded as green, multiplied by the cost per unit. In this case, the unit is the conversion. So I've got green times pink. And that's it. If you can keep it organized and color coded, that's great. We're learning how to do it in my mind. So let's do that calculation for what I've done just here. We're going to calculate our standards and our autos separate because there is different rules to auto factories. Number of conversions I did through standard was 3 STD conversions times the cost per unit for commerce, which I'm doing. If I read along here, 3, 1, cost is $3,500. So when I multiply those together, I get my cost. That's going to be equal to 3 times 3,500. 1,050. I'm going to do the same thing for autos. Autos, I did 6 conversions. 6 auto conversions times, oh, here we go, single or pair. That literally just means odd number of auto conversions or even number. Fortunately for me, it was even, so I just have to do it at the lowest cost, 2,900 per unit, 2,900. If, for instance, I had only got enough raw materials to do 5 of those conversions, I lost out on the auction, and some of these numbers said false. I updated my summary sheet with a smaller number than was required. I had too few raw materials, and that might occur. And one way to catch it is to look at the red error there. That's going to indicate that I now have a negative amount of raw materials, and that's not possible. So if you're keeping up to date on your raw materials in the summary sheet for the current month, and you're entering your conversions to check if they work, you won't run into that issue. But if you're not doing that, you might unwillingly try to run your factory unsuccessfully and face some penalties. So there is my total cost, which I almost finished calculating. It is for me 2,900 times 6. And I'm going to get a total cost. Total cost, which is going to be equal to that plus that. The 2 types of conversions added together. All right, so in summary, we have our number of conversions that we calculated from how many factories we have and how many each of those factories could do each month, how many conversions per factory, multiplied by our price, the cost per unit found in this column, and we're going to enter that into the equation. Green times pink, number of conversions times cost per conversion. And once I get my cost for standard and auto, I don't need to separate that on the summary sheet. I actually need the total cost from both of them. In my case, that's 27,900, adding those 2 together. 27,900. That's going to hurt the bank account. Advertisements costs, about the same of difficulty, I would say. I'm going to take my standard factories, and all of them, regardless of whether they're agriculture, commerce, or tech, are going to contribute to the cost. So the cost of an ad is going to be multiplying the price by the number of standards you have for this first column, depending on what I chose. And I chose web or net. Then I'm going to multiply that by how many auto factories I have. So my advertisement calculation is going to be my number of standards times the price per standard. Plus my number of autos times price of auto. Price per auto. All right, let's do that in our equation. It's going to be equal to, I have 3 standard factories right now, and I wrote it there, so it's good to reference. 3 times this price, 650. And you could click on it if you got the equation going right here, and it'll enter it for you. Plus my auto times price per auto, and I only have 2 autos, so plus 2 times this price, 920. Enter. We are spending $3,790 per advertisement. How many advertisements did I do? Well, the maximum allowable was 2, and I submitted 2 different forms, so I actually need to do this twice. So that's per ad. So I did 2 times 2 ads is going to be equal to that number times 2. Simple as that. $7,580. I'm going to copy that, Control-C, and paste it into my web or net total cost. Oh, it didn't like it. Let's paste as a value. All right, and I can just keep track of what kind of ads I had. This won't actually affect anything, but it's good to know where you got those numbers. I did 2 web or net. So the number of ads I did here, maximum 2. I could have done 1 TV media, 1 web net. I could also do 2 web nets, and it'll cost me more, but the more money I spend on ads, the more I should get out of them, technically speaking. All right, $65,000 in the hole, and I'm finally able to do sales. I just need to wait for the results of the conversions to come up. If it is yellow, that means there was a problem with that company. Looking at vet, it looks like those 3 and 6 went through splendidly. When you do see yellow, that just possibly means you have not been keeping track of your raw materials properly, and you're not doing your calculation for your conversions properly, and you should come back and watch this video to figure out how many factories times how many conversions per factory to get that. The biggest mistake for missing these conversions is not having enough warehouse capacity. So if you're consistently getting errors, it's not a bad idea to buy some additional warehouse capacity. You also want to make sure at all points in time that your warehouse capacity is large enough to hold all your raw materials, including the new stuff you bought. If I bought 14 and I can hold 29, and I started with 2 FIUs and 4 RMUs, I got 4 plus 2 is 6 plus 14 is 20, and I can hold 29. So that was even a bit of overkill, but some people like to play it safe. All right, we're on to the FIU sales. We've done our conversions. They went through successfully. Every number on this screen, every conversion turns into 1 FIU. You will be consuming, potentially, if you're in agriculture or commerce, more of the raw materials than you're producing finished inventory units. And that information is part of these. So You're going to get rid of 3 raw materials for 1 conversion and 1 FIU in agriculture. You're going to get rid of 2 raw materials to make 1 FIU in commerce. So that's what I've done. Since I have technically done 9 conversions, 3 plus 6, I have burned through 18 of my raw materials, and I can verify that by comparing what I started with. RMUs were 4, plus I bought 14, giving me 18, and leaving me with 0 at the start of February. But that's okay, because I'll have a chance to buy some more in February. All right, back to the FIU sales. We're going to go back to the market card, and we're going to see what everybody else bought, and that's going to help me decide whether or not there's enough demand in the market for these FIUs. And I'm focusing on commerce, which is what a lot of people are, and I might actually go through and count these up if I'm being very strategic, and notice that there are less that have been produced than was actually demanded. So you might think you can sell at the maximum possible price. However, we got to remember that our free factory bundles that we got in our Prestart Plan have FIUs that come with them for free. And if other groups are smart, like I am, they're going to choose to sell their extra stuff as well. So just like I bought fewer raw materials in January to save a bit of money, I'm going to sell additional FIUs in January to earn extra money. So technically, this shows that I have 9 FIUs, but if I look at my summary sheet inventory at the top, this will show that I now have 11. If I were to sell none in January, I've created 9, I'm up to 11, and I would like to sell all 11 if possible. So I'm not going to potentially offer the highest possible price. All right. Just in case there is more groups selling and we are running out of demand, I might sell for a couple $100 under or $1,000 under, or like Vetch did, $2,000 under in a split bid. Splitting your bid reduces the risk of getting nothing, and it still allows you to get a higher price for some, even if it comes with a lower price for others. So I've done it. I've put through my FIU bid form. I've chosen January, entered my code, and I've technically, as Group Vetch did here, submitted twice with 2 different prices, and that's totally fine. And look at what happened. We sold successfully. Turns out in this simulation, Vetch didn't actually do ads like I did. They were smart and saved their money, but they also missed out on some potential boosts. All right, that will be the last calculation I go through with you, calculating your advertisement boost. You are earning extra money if you build ads. So let's pretend for a second we aren't Vetch, but we are ICL. We got a better price and we got an ad boost. So we got to calculate how much money we just earned. We did successfully sell all 11, unlike MON here, who only sold 3. If there's a number shown, that means you did not get everything you wanted. And they didn't even bid the maximum. They got just a little bit unlucky. They, were a little bit extra confident in their price, but it didn't work out for them. So let's do a practice calculation for ICL for the amount of money we just earned. We're going to put this into our FIU sales. So we sold 11 commerce units. Now we need to figure out our total cost, or this is technically the total amount we earned. Let's just write our equation here. It's going to be equal to the number sold times the price times, and here's the fun part, I'm going to just keep it as a 1.xxx, and I'm going to replace xxx with my boost. from the slides as a percentage turned to a decimal. So if it was 7%, I'm going to replace XXX with 0.07. Divide that number by 100. All right, so once again, you're going to look at your ad boost here and divide it by 100. So 7 becomes 1.07 as the multiplier. 18 would become 1.18. When I divide 18 by 100, I get 0.18. And yeah, for me, that's going to be 1.07 this time. How many did I sell? Let's do the equation. How many did I sell? 11 multiplied by the price I asked. Say we were the greedy ICT group, 14,505. We got them all. We got lucky. And we got an ad boost, 1.07. That's from 7%. All right. If you're having trouble with the percentages, Google Sheets does work with percents too. So you could put in your 7%. All right. Or you could say what is equal to 7%. And it won't tell you, but divide it by 100. You got that. I believe in you. And that's it for the mandatory steps of the simulation. The next step is construction, which depends on whether or not we can afford it. And looking here, we just made 170,000. And after I factor in my next month, I have 77,000. That's coming after only my fixed expenses though. So part of construction involves calculating or estimating your next month. I would highly recommend that you fill out a estimate for the next month based on the previous month before you do any construction. So let's run through that really fast. We're going to assume the interest rate goes up to be conservative. It'll only ever go up by 0.5%. But that means that the money I have to work with for construction just went down. All right, let's see that again. It was at 77,000. And when I enter 5.5%, it goes down. Down to 68. Notice that these have an equation in them. Please just click on it and start typing your percent as a whole number, and it will do the rest for you. So 5.5% means I owe that much. Then it gets my fixed expenses for me. Great. Then what I might do is say, I'm going to buy my raw materials before I get paid. I don't want to go into debt for that. Let's see how much 18 is going to cost me. Let's assume I spend 1,200. You could pick any number you want. The higher, the more conservative, the lower, the riskier. So if I do 18 at $1,200, it's going to be 21,000. Running out of money pretty fast. I'm going to likely do the exact same conversions, assuming everything goes well. So let's assume that happened. Now I only have $19,000. If I bought my ads again, which I think is a good idea, that means I'm left with 11,000. Not a ton of money. We're going to go to the price info sheet and see what we can afford. 11,000 for commerce is not enough to do anything other than conversions. Conversions here is a factory conversion going from a standard to an auto. So it looks like I can afford that. I would likely go and enter in for my company a factory conversion. I'm not going to build any autos, so I'm going to leave that blank. I'm not going to build any autos. I can't afford it, but I can afford converting my standard factory to an auto. I might take a risk and go into debt to convert all three right away. Do note that conversions take 8 months to complete. So maybe I won't go into debt for that if it's a shorter simulation. And as we get into longer and longer simulations, this factory conversion becomes more and more worthwhile. It is a low cost for what I consider a high gain, because our new auto factory, once it arrives, will be able to do a lot more than our current standard one. for a low cost right now. The cost is really the waiting game, but take note that you will still be able to use your standard factory while this conversion is taking place. And that can be confirmed once I update my summary sheet with the construction I chose. I'm going to convert a standard to an auto by putting the number of it there and the cost of it here. And I had $2,000 left to spare. If I wanted, I could buy some gold. I could buy $2,600 of gold. That's playing a risky game, potentially. I might decide not to. Or if I'm really confident in my budget and my inventory and I've not made any mistakes and I'm not going to budge on the price or pay a cent more for my raw materials, we could be okay. It's not a bad idea to cut it close if you're feeling confident in your budget. What we don't want to do is spend money we don't have. So if anything is missing in January, if I forgot anything or miscalculated anything, that number won't be accurate and I might have a false sense of what I have. So that's where the summary sheet and the budgeting becomes so important. If I did buy this gold, it's going to earn me $130 next month. That's the gold appreciation next month. And I will have an accumulation of gold that continues to grow, work for me without me doing anything, some nice passive income for the rest of the simulation, assuming I do not take it out. I could at any time also get my gold back. So if I'm ordering this and buying $2,600 of gold this month, I could also sell gold later on. All right, I would submit this and double check on my inventory sheet that I've entered it correct by seeing what happens to my standard factories. I have 3 standard factories in commerce for every month, except, it doesn't go further. Maybe that was a bad decision. This is going to take 1 month, 2 month, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It should have done it. Why did it not do it? It's just been corrupted. But I know that it's been corrupted. What I might do here is change that to 2 and change my auto factories to 3. If you know that there's a mistake in this, that's the one time it's going to be okay to overwrite it. All right. So in conclusion, that is our first month of the simulation. Then we're going to go and check out the next month, look through our starting inventory, make sure we know what we've got in our warehouse. I've got no raw materials. I have 3 factories for standard still, 2 auto factories still. So that means my conversions are going to be all the same. 3 standards, 2 autos means 3 SD conversions and 6 auto conversions, costing me a total of $27,000. That's the nice part about the conversion calculations. They are the longest, they are the most confusing, but as long as you're not getting any new factories, they will stay the same. Then I need to just wait for the rest of the class and start the next month, with RMU bidding being the first phase always. And I'm going to work down the list for February, making sure I've got my interest calculated, my fixed expenses filled in, and then adjusting these RMU conversions that I had pre-entered based on the new amount that I choose. So if it's a little bit cheaper than I thought it was, I might make a bid of $1,000 instead of the 1,200 I had conservatively guessed here. And we're going to continue going through all those steps that we just went through in this video, one after another, top to bottom, for the next month. And if you're really keen, while there's downtime, you can be working on the ledger. And again, there are some ledger videos for you to watch to help with that. I hope this video helped you lots. And if you have questions, please leave a comment and I will get back to you. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.